We'll see.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, not too bad. How are you?
You bad? I don't think we've met before.
No, I don't think we've overlapped on these meetings. Hi, I'm David Justice. Work over at Microsoft previously with Carolyn and currently with Sarah.
Okay. Well, nice to meet you. I was at F5 for a while and then just impacted by the recent layoffs, but I've been continuing to kind of
Sorry.
the porter work. So
Yeah, I've heard all about you.
hopefully not all about me, just partially about me.
Just the good parts, right? Yeah. Actually, been trying to figure out how to. Gosh. No, I was saddened to hear that F5 laid off folks. It was a bummer, and
Yeah, it's the reality of it's I don't think it's even a bad indication of the tech industry right now. Like it's just kind of an opportunity. And by the way, why I didn't have my light on in my office. But I also see that there's still growth happening, right? Like it's a readjustment of priorities and kind of companies shifting away from ways of working and focusing in a different area. But there's other companies that are still hiring. It's not like there's no jobs out there, right? So
no, definitely. I mean, we're expanding in certain areas and shifting resources into areas, right? Mostly like cloud related stuff. We are being recorded, so we should give it till, well, it is the 5 after.
Brian is going to swing by too, Brian DeGeeter.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we've kind of like the last few meetings, it was just the three of us, Carolyn and me and Brian. So I'd really love to figure out if we can whip up a little bit more community involvement. It's kind of, I don't know, it felt like things were slowing down with Porter, specifically around like focusing on the dependencies work. Once the dependencies work was out there, I was really hoping to see a publicity campaign and a road show where we say, okay, now Porter is at this next level, because that dependencies thing unlocks this next level use case that most people haven't even considered, right? They don't think about, can I take all of the infrastructure of code and all these applications that are out there and make composable building blocks to build out complex systems, dynamic systems. And there is no solution for that outside of Porter that I have seen. And the dependencies work we've been waiting on it at F5 for like 2 years now. We had one of our engineers that built out these really complex scenarios, but we didn't have that dependencies work. And if we had that dependencies work, I think F5 would have just jumped on Porter and said, this is going to be basically what we were calling adaptive applications. But this is going to be the deployment and distribution model for our adaptive applications, because it just answers the use case so well. So I really want to see this dependencies work move forward.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about there with dependencies as well as the operator.
The operator totally, I think is just as important, but in a totally separate use case. So like that's my realm as operator. Like I live in operator land, and I'm thinking about like, how can I run Porter at scale, right? Like I want to use deployment as the engine to run my company. Like literally you could have your entire company that it's deployed and managed, and you're exposing products to end users all underneath the Porter operator is handling this for you. So that's also almost as important, I think, as dependencies. Dependencies like what is the unlocking the full potential of Porter as an engine, and then the operator unlocks the potential as unlocking Porter as a platform, right? It's like this scalable thing. That's my view on it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we've seen a lot of potential for Porter. Initially, folks used it as just like a way to package up CNAP bundles, and then really the orchestration portions were, I think, relatively undervalued.
Mhm.
And we're seeing we're seeing folks internally that were using it that undervalued the orchestration side and actually ended up building their own and realizing later, oh my gosh, I could have just done this so much easier.
So we had one of the teams at F5. Like the way I was wanting to see it at F5 is there's a couple different use cases. Like I wanted to see our SMEs. Instead of publishing, so sure, write an article about here's how you deploy some complex use case in the cloud. Write as much wordy instructions as you want, put all the screenshots in there that you want. I don't care. But at the end, have a Porter command that deploys that entire stack, right? Like that right there. Because what I found is it was just a mix of some automation, some literal, like, go to this UI and click this button. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's like when that is your deployment model for having customers try out new features, like you're just setting yourself up for failure at that point. So I wanted to see F5 have a try it now button alongside all of their products that they basically published. And you literally could click the try it now button. It would deploy the Porter bundle that we wrote, we maintain, and then you would have a, say, 24-hour trial period in our managed cloud to try out this thing. And then it just was auto read. And if you wanted to actually use it in a product, here's the Porter bundle that instantiates it. You bring your own cloud credentials at that point, right? But that was the use case number one. But the use case I got moving internally in F5 is we had a team that was building out complex test environments for the next product that F5 was launching. And they basically recreated Porter. So they had a Docker container that had all of these different Terraform plans in there for different clouds. And then they had a make file that, so the workflow was clone or pull down this Docker container, exec into the Docker container, and then start running make commands into the Docker container. And I'm like, whoa. Let's do this with Porter, because Porter is so much better UX for that. And so what they did is they said, okay, now you just clone down this repo and run this shell script, which is a wrapper for Porter commands. And I'm like, let's just have people run the Porter commands. They're like, no, we want them to run the shell commands that are the wrapper for Porter commands. At least we're heading in the right direction, right?
Yeah, it sounds like a step in that direction for sure.
Yeah. Yep. So I mean, just iteratively getting companies to understand the value that Porter can bring to them.
Yeah, it seems interesting, somewhat niche in that I don't think it doesn't feel like it's well known. So the value proposition is a little bit well, it hasn't been spoken about.
It hasn't what?
We haven't talked about it enough. As you're saying, we need more of a PR spree and start to write more, talk more at conferences about it. Start to educate people. What can you really do?
I mean, what can you imagine inside of an automation stack, right? Like that's the thing that I was trying to get across is like, you're not limited by your infrastructure as code tooling, and you're not limited by like, how do I make things talk to each other? Like you get that for free. Every engineer has solved the problem that Porter solves on their own many times, but I've never seen it done as well as this. So like the way we had done it before is we had like Ansible or Terraform modules that spit out Ansible inventory files. And then we just constructed workflows around that. And it's like, okay, well, let me run the Terraform, and then I have an inventory file and I can run the Ansible, but you don't have that higher level concept of not only is your Terraform code, but the version and the runtime of the tooling and everything to set up and get you to a consistent entry point is also code. And then everything after that to the application deployment is also code. So we were calling it infrastructure as code 2.0. It's that next way of thinking about what is code. Infrastructure as code is no longer just Terraform, right? Infrastructure as code is the entire life cycle of the application, from the version of the SSL library that you might need to deploy something into a cloud, all the way to the customized templates that actually lay down things on top of your cluster. So it's that unlocking that next iteration of IAC.
Yeah, that makes sense. And beyond that, if you're distributing, you're distributing that stuff in Docker containers, you're like distributing Terraform and Ansible in those containers. I mean, you're basically doing the same thing as packaging up CNAP bundles, right?
In a less efficient and
yes,
more complicated way.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. Looks like Ralph is going to swing by too. He was looking for the link, so hopefully. Oh, there he is. Oh no, there's Brian. Hey, Brian.
Hey, is this the turnout for today?
Looks like it so far.
Ralph said he was going to swing by too.
Hey, sorry, I'm tweaking I have to tweak my mics here. Yeah, I was just in another meeting talking to a team in the UK that's working on an open source version of Terraform Enterprise. And when I started showing them what Porter can do, they started realizing, oh, wow, that solves a whole bunch of problems for us that we haven't even gotten into yet.
So our journey into Porter was, we were writing a platform that leveraged Terraform Enterprise and as a backend for managing deployments of infrastructure. And we just realized how limited Terraform Enterprise was. And then we put Porter in, we basically just pulled Terraform Enterprise out and dropped the Porter operator behind it. And it's like, now we're no longer limited by any tooling, workflow implementation, is whatever. Now you've got the full power of Porter behind it.
All our use cases for the recent operator enhancements were all driven by that.
Yeah, it's compelling. And you're not locked into anybody's infra. You can run it however you like. Yeah. Yeah, Brian, I'm not sure if we've met before.
I don't think so, yeah.
David Justice, it's a pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, good to meet you.
I work in the same group as Sarah and Carolyn did. Sarah is not able to make it today, unfortunately.
We were talking yesterday. I think she had a conflict.
Yeah. So if it's just us, should we start with the CNCF spiel and introduce everybody to the community meeting and make sure we get down the nicety of opening the meeting?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
We normally have the agenda, but I don't know that there's much of an agenda right now. That's kind of in a...
No, I created the agenda. There's nothing there, but I'll at least kick off the meeting. Hello, everybody. My name is David Justice. This is the Porter Community Meeting for May 18th, 2023. And we are a CNCF project. That means we abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct. And we expect everybody to be kind to each other, treat each other awesomely. Okay. Thank you all. And the agenda for today is, well, in fact, it is empty. So I propose that we move to open discussion.
Sounds good.
Fantastic.
Gotta get the formalities out of the way.
Yes.
Yeah. Gavel strike. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about some of the stuff that we're kind of pushing forward from the operator perspective, if we want to go down that road.
Whatever you find is most valuable. And hey, let me know where I can help as well. So So from my position, I am the team lead over both Porter is and a lot of the WebAssembly stuff we do, and then also maintainer over in SIG cluster lifecycle in cluster API provider Azure. So a lot of my time is spent over in operators and stuff like that for cluster lifecycle, and then so I'm actually looking hopefully to help out with the operator as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I'll probably start to get involved a little bit more, and I'd love to hear more about the challenges and
Yeah.
you know where we're dropping.
Yeah, and actually, I think that leads well to what we were talking about with Sarah yesterday. We just put up a PR. It's a change to Porter, but it's ultimately intended for consumption by the operator. And so as part of this replacement for Terraform Enterprise kind of effort we were working on, it was really about integrating Argo workflows and the Porter operator together to drive things for us. And one of the things we ran into along that journey was how to get outputs out from an installation and get them to an end user. And we ended up having to kind of have a duct tape and bale wire solution for that initially. And that led to our discussions with this PEP6 to start introducing an API into Porter that would allow us to query and get output information back. So we just put up a PR that is about the introduction of a gRPC API into the Porter binary itself, Porter itself. And then ultimately, the next iteration of that work is to go in and enhance the operator so that the operator can spin up this API service as part of deploying the operator. And it's really internal, it's intended to be an internally consumed API such that the operator can go in and query and get information about the outputs of an installation. And then we have a variety of different options about how to ultimately present that to the end user. It could become a user-facing API down the road, although we didn't want to start out with that. And we've also talked about introducing a new CRD to the operator, which is an installation outputs type instead of just an installation type, such that you have this installation outputs, and we liked it as a separate resource because then you can put totally different RBAC around who has access to outputs from an installation versus just general information about the status of an installation. Because obviously there can be secrets and whatnot associated with the outputs of a installation, and we want to, and it actually becomes just like pointers to where to get that information from the secret store as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably don't want to make those. You probably want to make those actually
exactly.
And,
That's how our internal service that we have been prototyping works. It just gives you the information about how to get things from your key vault. But ultimately it's you had the ability to support a number of different options there. But really that allowed us to get rid of our duct tape solution for getting outputs, which was like literally like in an Argo workflow, run the Porter outputs command and scrape the JSON that comes from standard out. And so we've dipped our toe in the pool of adding an API, and we're trying to do it as mindfully as possible with like not going for the world out of the gate and everything, and really have it be use case driven with getting this in. So we're kind of, and I know we have a little bit of work to do on that PR still, but it's good to see that moving along. And it actually, that even leads to another effort that I'm trying to work on during my time here while I'm not gainfully employed. To actually put up a working reference example of all of this. So the whole Argo workflows, I have everything here where it's like you can spin up a kind cluster, deploy Argo workflows on it, deploy the Porter operator on it, and then just see all this as a working example and have it set up so you can deploy it locally on a local kind cluster, but then put a customized overlay on it and deploy it to Azure as well to see it running on AKS there too. But like that, that demo, and I've done this demo a million times to people internally at my former employer, but it really connects the dots for people when they see all that working together.
Yeah, that sounds like a great story to tell.
Yeah. I have a white paper or I don't know if a blog post or something to go along with it. And I've been talking with Sarah about writing that again from my memory of writing it internally, because it was something I did it internally when I was at F5.
That even sounds like it would make a pretty good like KubeCon talk or.
Yeah, we've been talking about that. That's exactly it. Yeah, like I know there's a deadline date coming up, but yeah, in fact, I've been talking with Carolyn. She, because I was showing her the early drafts of all that, and yeah, we were talking about it as a KubeCon presentation coming up here. So.
Yeah, that sounds like that would be pretty cool. I think that would resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's kind of where things are at, and yeah, I'm just kind of it's funny when I don't know if Stephen mentioned our history, but we were both at F5 together, and our entire org was basically cut in this recent layoff. No, trust me, it's. I was at F5 for 22 years and in various roles over the years, and it's afforded me some latitude to do my own thing for a little while, I guess is a good way to put it. And the first thing Stephen and I were saying we're going to do is this gives us more time to work on Porter and collaborate with Carolyn and everything. So we were actually talking about all of that, and now we're looking at it from the perspective of like we want to carry all this forward, and honor Carolyn's vision and everything too. So it's I feel grateful that I have the time to work on it. Yeah.
Well, hopefully we keep it fun, and we I don't know, make her proud.
Yeah. I think we will.
Yeah. What are the biggest challenges with the operator that you see right now?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, there was the output stuff. One of the things that is, and there's actually another issue, PR up where Stephen has a fix for this, because the operator initially was, very POC. It was a little too open-ended in some of the options that it gave users on how to configure and run things. And we found that to become more of a challenge as we started getting into the API work. And it's specifically what it is initially currently the operator would allow you, when you specify an installation, to specify a Porter config to go along with it. And that Porter config could be pointing to a totally different data store or key vault store. And so the decision was made to make a change to the operator so that we namespace things. So you only get to have one Porter config per Kubernetes namespace. And then if you don't have something, it falls back to a default namespace to get that Porter config. And then so taking out that variability and like, oh, what Porter config are we using for this installation and precedence problem, that I think simplifies owning the operator and executing it. And so and I think there's and so that came out of clarification around use cases. So I think having an exercise to like look at those top priority use cases for the operator and get those collected to kind of drive some more of this, I think would be a helpful exercise to go through.
That is what I'm hoping Ralph will help us with.
Yeah.
So we got a bunch of stuff going on in Finley right now that is not Porter, that Ralph is involved with. And after this next week, I think Ralph will be more involved with Porter, at least for the foreseeable future. We have work to do.
Yeah.
So and we all want to pitch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the operator, is the operator installed per namespace, or is it a global installation?
You can do it as a global installation, but then you can configure, can you? Yeah, I think so. But you basically can say, hey, the operator can only honor installations in specific namespaces. So you have to, I can't remember if it is, I don't think it's across all namespaces by default, because there's always like a follow-up action to enable it in a specific namespace that you're working in.
Okay. Cool. I gotta spin this stuff up. I have not spun up the operator yet.
Yeah. Another thing we have on our plate too is the CI pipeline for Porter. It currently doesn't test the Kubernetes drivers. So we've been handed builds of Porter that have a bug in them for the operator. So we want to make sure we're getting a few more checks into the Porter CI pipeline to make sure that we're exercising that driver as new builds are coming out.
So Porter driver being like, what is Porter driver being with Kubernetes? Is it actually just like deploying resources to Kubernetes? Like what kind of
it's the Kubernetes driver. It's around being able to read from like secret stores and just reading from config maps and things like that. So it's just about access to those Kubernetes native resources, where normally it would be going out to a going out via the directly to a MongoDB driver or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So that's actually not being tested right now. Do we have an issue for it?
I think I did cut an issue for it. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You did at some point. We were looking at that.
Yeah, because we were talking about that last week, I think. Yeah. Yeah, and I think we put it on the roadmap in the project planning page.
Yeah. Yeah, we went through the roadmap the other day and kind of figured out what's V1 on the operator really look like. And it's pretty close. There's just a couple things that need to be addressed, but the API that we're trying to implement goes a big step towards getting this to V1. Which, speaking of, are you very familiar with gRPC in general?
Relatively familiar.
Okay. We're looking for some reviewers on this PR, because this was kind of our first foray into some gRPC stuff. So it would be great to have somebody who's maybe a little more familiar with, how you should do things versus how we're doing things.
I mean, I was looking at nothing jumped out absolutely like horrendously bad. And
yeah. I mean, in a nutshell, the big thing we did is put in this like additional abstraction layer so that the data structures generated by the protobuf definition could be translated into the native Porter structs via proto-JSON and JSON marshalling and unmarshalling between them. And that uh, uh, that, just helped us kind of align the proto definition to match the
Yeah.
native border structures as much as possible.
There
Yeah.
probably some optimization and refactoring we could do around that, but
Yeah.
it is kind of it's backwards. Like we're not generating structs from proto files. We're generating proto files from structs, and that way doesn't always work. The other way works pretty seamlessly. It seems like you can write your proto file and then blast out your structs, but when you already have the struct format, you may not have all the compatibility in the protobuf is what we're seeing.
But we didn't want the gRPC API needs to dictate.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Internally.
It's a second class citizen.
Well, yeah, normally that's the driver because it's the lowest common denominator, right?
Yeah. But it would be great,
yeah.
if you want to do a review of that PR and get some more eyes on it.
I will. I'll assign myself the review. Awesome. Well, you have a handful of reviewers there. Actually, I'm probably gonna have to join the org
There you go. Yeah.
because I'm not marking myself as a reviewer right now.
But yeah, I don't know. But I can't think of anything else that's like high on the radar for things right now.
In terms of what's next for the operator,
Yeah.
there is one critical breaking bug that needs to be fixed ASAP, and I'll probably try to tackle that next week. But there was a pretty significant feature put in around how the operator handles installing plugins for a agent config.
Yeah, right.
And it's pretty complicated on what we're doing. It makes sense, but it's not super straightforward. But that introduced a bug where if you have an agent config in the operator and it goes through and does its installation of all the plugins in that agent config, and then you change that agent config, you change the size, the memory size of the pods, whatever it is, some non-plugin related change in the agent config, it breaks the operator until you delete and reapply the agent config. Like the operator can no longer find that agent config to operate against. And I know why, I need to go in and fix it, but it's critical breaking bug that has to be fixed.
So I'm sorry, is the fix breaking or is it just a bug that we know of that causes the operator malfunction?
It's so yeah, there's a bug out there now that's on the roadmap that has to be done. So I know what the fix will be for it. I need to just go implement it. It's going to take probably a few
But
hours.
it's not a breaking fix for end users.
No. Yeah, it's not. Sorry, breaking is probably not the right term there.
Yeah.
When I say breaking, I mean
We're not bumping the major version, right?
Yes, operator is no longer functional when this bug is hit.
Yeah.
Good. Hey, bad, but good.
Yeah. It's a point release, right?
Yes. Those are good. API changes are.
Yeah, no. Not that. The other definition of breaking, the chaos monkey version of it.
Cool. Awesome. Any issues? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, if you are wanting to jump in and start contributing to the operator, I mean, is there a place that you want to start out? Like, how do you want us to go? Are you pretty familiar with it? Do you want us to kind of do a deep dive at some point on it? Like, I'd say Brian and I are the most familiar with the operator at this point.
I'm not terribly familiar, but I'm really good at reading tests. So I'm probably like my first endeavor would be probably just to jump in, spin the operator up, run tests, and then go through and look at the areas. If there's an issue that would be helpful and I think wouldn't be the most difficult thing in the stack, I'd be delighted to take it on.
Yeah, I'm looking through issues right now. But yeah, I put a link into the project page, and there are in the chat here,
Yeah,
and there is, we did prioritize some of the issues.
maybe the better question would be, which one's going to rip my face off if I go after it? And which one, like, are there any I should avoid because the context is too great?
Right now.
Porter fails off for installation image pull Kubernetes driver.
Yeah, that one, that's a bug that I wrote up. Which I don't know, that could potentially, so ultimately, that is a fix that needs to happen in the CNAB libraries, not in Porter or the operator itself, because the CNAB libraries are basically written to assume running and finding a local like Docker auth file to get auth from versus being able to support native Docker auth secrets in Kubernetes. So that if you follow that up the dependency chain, it's a fix in the CNAB code base, which is something that would often have to happen. We're often kind of bleeding edge with using some CNAB functionality like that. So
sounds like fun. It sounds like a lot of plumbing, and I think it would give me a really nice introduction.
And honestly, like, one of Stephen and I both came from an automated testing org, and we very big on behavior driven testing and everything. So I hope you find that like spinning up a test environment and running some of these higher level integration tests is pretty seamless, and we've always we definitely make all that a first class citizen.
Just
the work we're doing.
Excellent.
Yeah.
PSA, I don't know if you've seen it, but Docker 4.19 on Mac broke Porter completely. So if you're going to be working on a Mac testing Porter, make sure you're not running 4.19. And I'm not sure what to even do about that. Like we need, we got to figure out how to handle that kind of scenario when they get to where you can't run non-root bundles in Docker desktop on Mac. That's kind of a big deal.
Yeah. What version now? 4.419?
4.19.
Docker desktop.
That's the latest one that's out.
All right. So I was looking at Docker version.
Oh yeah, no,
that's
you have
like
to look
23.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm not sure what it's specifically on Mac, because there's something that I had to do in Mac with some Symlink stuff that they now broke. There's an open issue for it, and we've got that. We're following it, but yeah. So if you run into some weird thing and you're on a Mac, make sure it's not 4.19 Docker desktop.
Yeah, I'll do it in my Linux machine.
That's probably best.
Yeah, it's always safer there.
Yeah. But that's Porter, like, because of all the transition to executing everything non-root, we tend to be pushing these non-root execution use cases too. And so it's really surprising to me that Docker can even have a release that can break something like that. So yeah.
I am not sure. I'll definitely take a look at it though. That sounds horrible. All right. Interesting. So I would imagine Caroline is still assigned to quite a few things. Probably should clean those up at some point.
And I don't think we're dealing, I mean, Sarah, I think would know better, but any access to code, because I know, there's a lot, not a lot, but there's definitely references to forks of things, or even like, mage file stuff that was coming from Carolyn's personal Git repo. And so we may want to look at forking that into the Porter project as needed as well. Or, often Carolyn would go off and fix an issue in a third-party library, and we're running off of a fork of it, and her fork of it instead of the.
Yep.
And so
I was
doing a little audit of our Go mods and making sure we have issues to address any kind of workaround fixes like that, or even just checking, because often like she's fixing it in the upstream and just waiting for the upstream to take on the PR.
It's so funny. You don't think about it. Like, how many times have you done that? Like a million times where, oh, I just need to get this little patch. All right, cool. Here's my fork. And I bet you there's dozens of projects like that where that have, that little patch applied, only that fork.
For sure. One thing like with Carolyn that was invaluable with working, like contributing to Porter, is hang on a second. I got invaded. So like she had such a knowledge of the internal libraries where like if you just had a question, you could basically ask her and she would just, she just knew, right? And we're nowhere near, we're years away from being able to do that. Is there anybody that worked with her initially that's kind of at least maybe can semi operate like that? Like is he still pretty involved in Porter much, or just having somebody that knows some of the deep internals? Because I've dug into the deep internals of Porter and it's large and complex. So some kind of research.
Jeremy's around, but he's also resource constrained. So he has like a full load of work. He has said that he's going to try to help out where he can. If there's anything anything in the core that you want to ask, I think he's going to be available, at least looking at the Porter channel in Slack. So it's going to be best effort, but
he's probably the most knowledgeable about Porter internals, though. Like, because the example I'm thinking of is when we wrote the gRPC service, essentially what we did is we added a hidden command to Porter itself called server. And so because we needed to leverage so many things already in Porter and how it sets up its connections and how it does its connections to storage plugins and doing all of its internal stuff. And so like Carolyn was like, okay, well, let's just get this through here. Like, that's fine. I'm fine. We'll put it behind a feature flag. It can be part of the main Porter, but ultimately we're going to want to strip this down and make it run, pretty lightweight, because we don't need all this other stuff. And she was like, oh, that'll take me a weekend to do, right? So I'm wondering, for me, if I was to come back and try to understand all of the internals to make that server command lightweight, like I'm going to have to dig into Porter significantly to do something like that. Whereas for her, it was like, oh yeah, I know, I just know how all this works. Let me just do it real quick, right?
I totally understand that.
Yeah. I would say it would take me 2 weeks, it's conservatively, of working on it to actually understand how to make that a lightweight command versus, she was pretty confident she could do it in a matter of hours. So
a lightweight command being it was its own executable, or a lightweight command? Yeah.
It's totally separate binary.
Yeah. I got you. I hate to say it, but I think that's going to be the way things are for some time. There's no replicating Carolyn, like force of nature. So we can only hope to do our best, and it's going to be as fast.
But like anybody working on open source stuff, digging in and reverse engineering other people's code just comes with the territory. So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah, the code is really where all the docs are. So
Yeah, but the good part was, she's really good at that. Like the documentation, the issues, like the organization, so amazing.
She
So
coded for other people to contribute to her code.
Yeah.
She didn't code for herself.
Yeah.
And it shows. But Porter is large and complex.
yeah, you know, my first impression of it when I was actually I was looking at the mage stuff, and I was like, what's going on? Oh my god, the build is all go. It's all go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. There's no make files. It's mage. And
I've actually, in a different project, I've been taking all that same functionality, but writing makefile native versions of more of it, you know.
Love it's a lot of go. It's good go. It's a lot of go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That threw me for a loop the first time, but cool. Thank you all. Thank you both for all this information, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Let us know if you want to do, because we did a deep dive, kind of a deep dive, really more surface level, because the operator is kind of complex in and of itself, but over the operator with Sarah, and her kind of feedback was, I don't even want to worry about that. Like, that's too much for me. You guys do the operator and I'll focus on dependencies. And I was like, cool, because we need dependencies. That's crucial. But if you want to do a dive into the operator, just let us know and we can schedule some time to do that. But yeah, absolutely go through, run the integration test and all that too.
Awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Let me dig in, and I'll be in Slack. So I'll probably ping you.
Cool.
Okay. Just a heads up, I am starting a new job next week, so I'm not sure what my availability or contribution level is going to be like going forward. We'll see. It's definitely not going to be like it was previously, where I was allowed to spend as much time working on Porter as needed. I'll be around Slack for sure, but I'll know more in a couple weeks on how much I'll be able to contribute.
Well, congratulations. And it also sounds like you have other things going on too that are really a lot of fun, or at least from the background.
Yes, for sure. It's never a dull moment here. I'll put it that way.
Awesome.
All right. Anything else?
No Ralph. I thought he was going to join, but he didn't.
Ralph's ephemeral. Like, it's just poof.
Yeah.
He just hops into Slack and he's gone.
Yeah, he was like I said, he's been bouncing all around. We've been keeping him very, very busy for the last few weeks. But it's been good stuff. It's been really neat. He's been mostly on the WebAssembly side of things. So yeah, if y'all are ever interested, let me know. Happy to jaw about virtual machines and WebAssembly.
Yeah, I would love to get into that. It's something I've never really ventured into. So
yeah, neat stuff. And actually, we just had the first meeting of the working group for WebAssembly in SIG runtime. So that's actually where I was before I came over to here. So it's going to be a thing.
So are you like working with like Bartholomew?
Let's see. It was I did not see Bartholomew there.
No, I'm talking the open source tool.
Oh, you're talking about the CMS. Oh, so Bartholomew. So the Fermion guy, Fermion folks built that, and so a little bit less at that level and a little bit more at like the container D level. So
Oh, okay.
how do we actually like run like pods as just WebAssembly pods? Make it like totally seamless that you don't have to realize it's actually WebAssembly. It just works like a pod. So let me see if I can. I'll send you a link. There's a project that we created called Run WASI to do this kind of stuff.
I was listening to the recent episode of the Go Time podcast. I think it was Go Time. Well, not the reason was Go and WASM, and they were talking about these like there's a need to spin up at these microsecond, nanosecond timeframes, and how that was impacting performance of APIs and everything, and just like that next level of now first VMs weren't fast enough, then containers aren't fast enough, and now it's all about
That's exactly it. And we are there's all sorts of really cool cutting edge work going on into like, okay, so like what do you need to run this thing? Do you use Firecracker? Firecracker spins up in 125 milliseconds. That's not fast enough to run a function. I want my function to be microseconds, nanoseconds, right?
So back to kilobyte file sizes.
Yes,
it's crazy.
But better than
right?
that. Better than that. Think about how the monolith got broken up into microservices. But why? Because you had different teams that were working on different microservices that maybe wanted to have different languages. They loved all of that stuff. What if
your
now,
architecture reflects your org?
Yeah, but it's okay now, because what if each of those languages can compile down to WebAssembly, and we have an interface defined on those, and we can just take those and plug them in together. And who cares if it's actually running as a monolith? We don't really care if it's running as a monolith or if it's running distributed. It just works.
Yeah.
Because now the boundary is WebAssembly as opposed to language to language gRPC. There's all sorts of
and actually that's the thing. I remember them talking about refining the data serialization and the data structs, and how using JSON was no longer efficient for any of that sort of stuff.
No,
and they had to use
literally
like
like memory layouts. That's exactly it. So you're now saying, all right, here's the message header that actually tells you the layout of my struct, and here's the memory layout, and go to it. Because WebAssembly, like say you hello world function, and you pass in the string that you're going to add to the hello world, Bob or whatever. The string representation of WebAssembly for that function is going to be the pointer to the start of the string and the length, right? So it's 2 integers, and you just get integers. Like you don't get anything. You get integers and some memory, and so that's all you get in the VM. So hello world becomes very, very simple, but it takes a lot to take those like complex types and pass them in as an arg, and you have to lower them into like what the VM expects them to be. There's weird stuff that goes on, but
I'm definitely gonna have to dive into that and understand that a little bit more. It's not even something I can discuss intelligently at this point.
Well, if y'all are ever interested in coffee, that's happy to do it. And I'll pick your brains about the operator. We can share.
Perfect.
Let's rewrite everything to support WebAssembly. Like what? That's the goal, right? We start seeing all these Rust merges come into the operator. Like, whoa, what's going on here?
Well, hopefully, like Go is quickly supporting. In 121, you'll have a WASI Preview 1 support. I expect in 122 you'll have Preview 2 support, and so the compiler's moving with it now. You don't have to just use TinyGo.
Oh, that's interesting. Because I've heard a little bit about a breakdown of what languages work better with WASM, and Go is considered less efficient.
It has been, but Go team is taking it seriously now, so they're working on it.
Nice.
Good stuff. All right, I'll let you all go. It's good to see y'all. And excited to work with you both.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
It's good to meet you, Dave.
Yeah, we can definitely get some traction on the operator. So excited.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Have a good day.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you all.